Premier Scene podcast. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. I've got a few friends here, some filmmaker friends, and you'll often see us on the red carpet, but we thought we'd make it a little bit more intimate and talk a little bit more about what's happening, about what's in the cinemas at the moment, what's coming out, so kind of... Anthony's normally behind camera, he's joining us.
Hello, I'm Anthony, the technical whiz behind Premier Scene.
We got Keith.
Hi, film fan, filmmaker, and
Film buff.
Film buff.
Fellow podcaster.
And fellow podcaster.
Fellow podcaster, yes.
You can plug it.
Pleased to be here.
And Ryan.
Yes, me who I'm a film fan, reviewer, interviewer, and now podcast.
And you've done the theme tune for the new podcast.
Wrote the theme tune. I feel like
there you go.
That fella off Minder.
Dennis Waterman.
That's living all right.
Wrote the theme tune.
Slight resemblance.
Wore the t-shirt.
Yeah.
And today what we're going to be discussing is Alita Battle Angel, that's in cinemas now. The Ring's 20th anniversary that's just about to be released. And also Fighting With My Family, which is coming out in the next couple of weeks, I believe. Yes. So, should we start with The Ring? Because I think all of us have seen The Ring.
We've gone there already. Let's just
dive right into The Ring.
Hey. Start the way we need to go on.
Is this a kids? Is this a family friendly?
It's family friendly. It's something that the kids can listen to as they grow older and realise there's a whole other level of humour. Like a decent carry-on film.
Yeah, exactly. So we've all had the pleasure of seeing The Ring.
I just wanted before we go any further with that. I just want to add that it's just called Ring.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
So that's slightly kind of...
Look, it's got The Ring.
No, The Ring is actually the US remake, the Hollywood remake. The original film, I think it is called Ring, but it's written as Ringu.
Ringu.
Oh, Ringu.
Okay.
That's right.
So,
not Ringo.
So it sounds slightly less suggestive when you just say Ring.
Okay.
And not The Ring.
The Ring, yeah.
You're right.
I only watched like the first half an hour. I didn't. And it was just that's all. I'm not seeing the original. I wasn't sure if I had seen it or not, but I'd seen the US remake, but I hadn't seen the original one. And we was watching it, and I was just been a long day, and it's like I want to focus, and I couldn't. I was uncomfortable, and I just wanted to go to sleep. And it's like then I can, and I meant to watch it today, and I didn't get a chance. There we go. So I've not seen the original.
Well, we were lucky enough to go. Well, me and Keith went to a screening, so it was nice to see it on the big screen. I think when I first saw it, it was probably on VHS.
Well, I was going to say, which is kind of meta in some respects. If you watch, in fact, I've come straight from work for being late, but my original plan was I've got an Arrow Video T-shirt that actually has a VHS cassette on the front, and I thought, that would be the perfect thing to wear today to review The Ring, but hey, never mind. Ring.
Ring. There you go.
But the weird thing is,
maybe I think it's Valentine's Day and people will be getting a ring out.
Oh wow! Okay.
This
doesn't get any better, does it?
Come on. Claire went all cliche on us.
But yeah.
I do like that this episode where it's all in reds and like February 14th. Valentine's Day.
But Valentine's Day will be gone and forgotten by the time this is out, right? So I don't know.
You know, that is a very good point. I'm sure we will get it. I think,
that's a whole other
Back
to Ring.
So yes, we saw it on the big screen. Which was glorious.
Which has been restored, hasn't it?
It's been restored. It looks fantastic. But the thing is, I was trying to delve into my memory, which it's got so many films in. It's hard to remember some stuff. But I was trying to remember when I first saw it. I'm wondering whether I did see it on VHS. I don't actually think I did. I think I saw it on DVD.
Oh, possibly. Yeah, I think I did.
Because it was in that you know, I mean, we're saying it's the 20th anniversary.
Yeah,
it's actually
yeah.
weirdly,
I think
weirdly,
1998 when it was.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's obviously, and the film itself is set in '97 because you actually see the date on photographs they look at. You know, when they used to print the date.
Yeah, you have got an eye for detail.
But it just made me sort of think because if you watch that film and you're watching that film on a VHS, you are kind of complicit with the conceit of the film, because especially if the phone happens to ring as soon as you've watched it. But you know, we as a viewer, we see the tape, we see the film that they watch, and then of course you know. So anyway, so I think I found that kind of interesting, but I think one of the things that really struck me about the film, especially living, you know, in today's time, is, and it makes you think, 20 years, a lot's changed, because the film really was so analog in every way.
Yeah, it was.
Because you've got the video, you've got the Polaroids and pictures that they take.
Yeah.
The core, the core comes in on a landline.
Yeah.
You know, when they're doing the investigation work, they're actually looking at newspapers and books.
Yes, that's true. They're not on the internet, aren't they?
Exactly.
That's right.
So it's bizarrely, it's a really analog film, and I just thought that was kind of interesting today. You know, you've got your grainy video quality, although the film looked amazing.
Yeah, it did. Yes, it did.
The actual thing. So you've got kind of all those sort of things going on, and but I don't know whether my first viewing of it was. I don't know whether I think I came to it on, because it would have been released when I was at film school, and the whole J-horror thing. Because let's be honest, the 90s was not typically a good time for the horror genre in terms of Hollywood and British films. I mean, it got very much into the sort of, you know, Scream had changed the whole landscape.
Yes, it has,
and it had all become sort of the self-parody type thing. And you were getting, whereas in the 80s you'd have everything that was explicit with, you know, gore and nudity and that sort of thing. Suddenly in the 90s, it was starring, you know, attractive people that you see in TV shows, popular TV shows. And there was less nudity and less gore, and it was more about this almost making fun of itself, being a parody of what had happened the decade before. And the whole J-horror kind of opened up. I think it was kind of a turning point, and it was interesting because I know at film school, you know, obviously the upbringing had always been films from Hollywood or the UK, and the world cinema. You know, I was trying to watch more stuff, and they were mainly old classics. You know, from Europe or Sweden or you know, wherever. Whereas J-horror, that was current, but it was foreign.
Yes,
If that makes sense. So I anyway, sorry, I'm
no,
I remember being. I mean, obviously, it was probably about 20 years ago when I last saw it. So I was sort of worried going in that, oh god, this is going to be dated. You know, this is going to be pretty bad. But actually, it kind of had a charm for that. It was still scary. It still had a really good atmosphere. It still was very creepy.
Yes.
And I think that it kind of added to that. And actually, I went only last night. Actually, I watched the sequel, Ring 2 or Ringu 2, on DVD. Right. It was interesting to see the difference in the picture quality so the restoration is really quite stunning.
It's amazing.
So going back and watching Ring 2 on DVD, it looks pretty bleak. It's very contrasty. But yeah, I found that it still flowed very nicely. It's only about an hour and 35, I think. So it's it's not too long, and it's just I think it holds up, which was my main concern. I think it holds up. It's still great horror.
I suppose a good story is a good story, isn't it?
Exactly.
And what I liked about it, you know, because I always like a mystery, and there's that, you know, picking up
story,
it's a great detective story, and then and it kind of builds up, and there are moments that really make you go, ooh, and it's really creepy, isn't it? But but you do, and it's got a satisfying ending as well that you wouldn't necessarily expect.
I was going to say it's a pretty dark ending.
Yes,
are we doing spoilers?
No spoilers.
I haven't seen it.
But I mean,
no.
Okay.
Sorry, completely forgot.
It's a pretty bleak ending.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting franchise because essentially, it was adapted from a novel.
Oh, was it?
But in terms of films, there's been a real weird history with it because it was originally made in like 1995 as a TV movie, which I've not seen. I've tried to find it, and you can't find it. It doesn't seem to be online anywhere. And then, obviously, it got remade as this film that we saw, which everybody thinks is the original. You know, the 1998.
Yes,
9, depending on
where you were on the continent.
So it came out as that, and then of course you had the sequel that you've mentioned, and then you had a prequel. So you had a third film in that trilogy, Ring Zero, which was like a prequel to it. But weirdly, you also had in between. Okay, there was a Korean remake. Wow. So you had the Japanese film, but there is also which I've not seen, a Korean version of The Ring as well. And then there was another film that was made as a sequel to Ring, right, that wasn't Ring 2. Apparently they made another film and the reaction to it wasn't good, so they scrapped it to make Ring 2. So that's weird. But then what's even more weird is then you've got the Hollywood remakes, which there were 2 of those.
Yes.
2 of those.
Yeah. And then there was like a kind of sequel reboot about a year ago called Rings. But there was also
I haven't seen it, but I remember it.
But there was also a Hollywood short film called Rings as well, which bridged the gap between the Hollywood version of The Ring and Ring 2.
Okay.
So it's a really complicated franchise. And there's all these sort of different versions. And what I wanted to do, we talked about this, was after watching that, I thought, right, I want to watch everything. I want to go and just and it wasn't available anywhere on streaming. It wasn't on Amazon, it wasn't on Netflix, it wasn't on Sky, and there is I had, but unfortunately I don't have it here in London, but I had a I don't know whether you remember, but Tartan Video.
Oh yes,
They did an Asia Extreme collection, which was really good. It was Korean and Japanese films, and they had a horror section of that, and there was a really good trilogy box set that you could get of the Japanese films, and they had like notes from Kim Newman and Mark Kermode and people like that.
I had that.
But Arrow are about to release an all singing, all dancing trilogy Blu-ray set, which has got, they're all remastered, but it's also got shed loads of special features, commentaries, retrospectives, all of that sort of thing. And apparently it's also going to have the unreleased, which I forget what it's called, but not the one that was replaced by Ring 2.
Right.
Whatever it was called, I can't remember. I need to look that up. I should have done more homework. But it has that included on this set, so I'm really keen to get that and to see that. And I'm not. I sound like I'm here promoting Arrow Video.
Yeah, no, it's not a bit.
But
if you got your T-shirt on, we might be thinking that.
A mug or something. But it's really interesting, the whole sort of franchise, and I really wanted to sort of delve into, because apparently there's been a TV series as well.
Oh my
apparently.
Goodness, it's really inspired.
So again, this is all just information I managed to find online. How accurate it all is, I don't know. But I always felt, I don't know whether I'm sure I saw the Japanese ones first, and then of course in 2000 or whatever, the Hollywood,
I think
one was it the Hollywood one came?
Yeah, with Naomi Watts.
But and I liked it because it had
I did as well. I did revisit that. I did revisit that. And it is essentially kind of a scene for scene remake. It is.
Although what they try and do in the American version is Gore Verbinski directed it. But what they tried to do in that was explain everything,
right? Okay.
Which they tend to do in Hollywood remakes. I've noticed they tend to, whereas there's so much ambiguity in the original.
Yes, there is.
I mean, you think about it; it's a bonkers premise that makes no sense whatsoever, and the video tape itself, the imagery on that was just bonkers. It actually made no sense whatsoever. Yet they're trying to in the US one make an explanation for what each image is and how it works, and you've got that whole thing with the horse and whatever.
It's horrible. Because I revisited it.
Right,
it's a horrible scene when the horse gets freaked out because she's seen the video, so she's. Naomi Watts has seen the video and she's starting to sort of see things, and this horse freaks out when it sees her on this ferry. And it basically commits suicide. The ferry jumps over, and then you see the horse get its head bangs against the side of the boat.
It's really
harrowing, nasty kind of scene actually. And in what I found with the American one is that they also take parts of the Japanese Ring too, so they kind of blend the two films together to make one. And like you were saying, it then offers a little bit more explanation to things.
It's trying,
but you don't want too much explanation when there's something with a phone call involved and video. Because I'm sort of picturing this girl who's trapped down spoilers. This girl sort of like ringing people. She's right, just watch the video. Pick up. 7 days. Yeah, it's kind of like she's just waiting. It'd be like WhatsApp now, wouldn't it? 7 days.
That could be like bullying, couldn't it?
But I mean,
there'd be a campaign. There'd be like wristbands and everything.
But the other bonkers thing with this as well is that there's been sequels to the Japanese films that feature the character, like again more backstory on what's the name of the character begins with.
Is it Samara in the American?
It's Samara in the US one, but
it's I want to say Sudoku. That's probably horribly.
But it's something like that. But
it's puzzling.
But what's
I just picked up on
very
that.
Very
good.
But then they've even done they did a film which there you go.
That's when it just renamed it to Sudoku. Ring 74, numbers up. See, that's why we're all filmmakers.
There you go.
This is the think tank right now.
We're wasted. We just should be. But
everyone was puzzled.
But they did a
until the end.
I'm puzzled by this look. Yeah.
Did you say that your number's off?
Yeah. I've got your number. But they did a bonkers thing where, and we saw this at Fright Fest a couple of years ago, and it was terrible. Is they did The Ring versus The Grudge.
Basically. Names,
and it was the two names of the creatures in those films.
Right.
But and again, it's really, really stupid mash-up thing, versus film. But what was frustrating with that film is because it was trying to work as a standalone film as well. Yeah. Essentially, you got the first part of the film was a truncated remake of The Ring, and the second part of the film was a truncated remake of The Grudge, and then they kind of met one another, and it was just I just remembered it being really bad. And
is it as good as Freddy versus Jason?
Well, I love. Okay, I actually like Freddy versus Jason.
I like it a lot.
That's a guilty pleasure. There you go.
That is a really guilty pleasure. Because it's like it's not a masterpiece, but I enjoy it. It's Freddy.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yeah. And Jason, obviously, which leads to the title. But I do. One of those damn things.
Yeah.
It just leaves it wide.
Forget open. Numbers. You should do crosswords.
The puzzler.
Maybe we should play Hangman or something.
Oh, blimey! Have you seen that?
Oh dear, is that a film as well?
Yeah,
no, I've not seen that.
It wasn't very good. Carl Urban, I love Carl Urban. Carl Urban, Al Pacino, and...
Oh, yes, we did watch that.
I was going to watch that. It's got the girl from Pitch Perfect.
Yeah, I wouldn't...
Whose name is escaped me.
Yeah.
I was going to watch that, no good?
Not written. It's very painting, but...
It's the name of the character.
Oh, is it?
Sudoku is the name of the character, according to this. I'm just looking it up. And then there was the Versus film was. Is it Kayako from?
This rolls off the
tongue. Kayako versus Kayako.
That rolls off the tongue.
Yeah. The mashup's called Jenga, and if you're just not careful, it'll just all collapse around you.
Oh, but Anthony, that's brilliant.
You knew this was coming, and you've just been prepping this stuff, haven't you? You've just been like,
I don't want to take the monopoly of this thing.
You've just been going through your book of dad jokes, haven't you? Your dad joke, you know. Film pun.
All I'm trying to do is connect war.
Oh dear.
Don't be a donkey.
Jokes on him, though. He's got to edit.
Yeah, that's true. This is all staying in.
You're making this a operation.
I'm scrabbled. Actually, I'm sorry.
Just don't get involved. Anyway, if you're
it's like Top Trumps.
I'm crying and my makeup's going to run. I'm going to look worse than I've come out of my horror film.
This is just the most ridiculous podcast.
It's going to be 3
hours.
So
well.
It's going to be 3 hours long. If you want to see The Ring, it's going to be in Cineworld and Showcase Cinemas from the 1st of March 2019.
And then the box set's available in, I think, the 18th of March.
Is it? Oh, fantastic.
Which, I must admit, I'll be first in line to
I'll be getting
buy a copy of that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Looking forward to having that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, should we talk about Alita, Battle Angel?
Battle Angel.
Which is currently in cinemas, if you haven't had a chance to see it. Do we want to hear what Mr. Rodriguez had to say?
We can pull up what Mr. Rodriguez says.
Let's get an opinion of someone who actually matters.
Yeah. A real filmmaker. A real filmmaker.
I'm sure he'll be impartial as well.
Yeah, exactly. But we were lucky enough a week or so ago to be on the red carpet and interview. There was Rosa Salazar, Christoph Waltz, Jennifer Connelly, Kean Johnson and Robert Rodriguez and James Cameron were all at the world premiere. It was a brilliant lineup. It was a great red carpet. So let's first of all see what Mr. Robert Rodriguez has to say. Obviously, we're setting up a dystopian world, but for me, watching the film, there's the characters have a lot of heart, and the story has a lot of heart. Was that really important to you?
Yes, absolutely, because otherwise it would feel too much like maybe just a sci-fi, cyborg action film. And when Jim's movies go beyond that, they play all over the world. Even if you don't think that's your thing, you'll be surprised that you're attracted to the human drama of it. So that's the word we're trying to get out to people, is that even if you don't know what a manga is, you're going to be so, endeared to this character and to this world and find it so relatable, it'll shock and surprise you. It shocked me.
And the aesthetic of the film, was that always in the script, or did you bring that kind of Mexican vibe as your own imprint?
That was something Jim had already done. He had actually, but not for that reason, mainly for a scientific reason. He thought that it needed to be closer to the equator in order for a space elevator to work. So he surmised that it was probably like Panama City, which I thought, great, that's like a Latin country. You've never seen a sci-fi Latin film. We're going to have an amazing look for this film. But he really did it for scientific reasons, first and foremost.
That's it from the world premiere of Alita, Battle Angel. You and I have been lucky enough to see it, haven't we?
Well, yeah, I mean, I did go and see it on in 3D IMAX, which, you know, I have opinions about things like 3D and IMAX and all this sort of thing, and I think there are certain films that absolutely loan themselves to that. Yeah. And I hadn't seen, I hadn't gone to see Aquaman a few weeks back. I didn't see it in 3D IMAX, and I didn't particularly enjoy the film, right? So I thought, well, for this one, I want to go and see it in that format, because quite a lot of the scenes are in full IMAX. And obviously, when you look at the pedigree of the filmmakers with this, I mean, James Cameron, who I'm a big fan of anyway, but he's revolutionised the whole 3D thing. He sort of kicked that all into
into
gear where it is now, with Avatar and whatever. And then, of course, Rodriguez having made Sin City and everything. So it's kind of the the perfect combination, really. And it was great to see it in that format, I have to say.
And I think when you've got somebody like James Cameron making a film like that, I think, and I'm not a big fan of 3D either, but it's more than a gimmick when you've got somebody, a filmmaker of that kind of calibre making the films. It isn't just about, he sees a quality in 3D that he wants to show an audience, and it's a way that I heard him talking to kind of other crews, and he's so passionate about 3D.
Yes.
And that.
Well, there's depths and layers to the way the film is designed, and there are certain points in the film where, they're essentially stood on the edge of a building, and you look down, but you do actually get the sense of vertigo from it.
Yes,
It actually plays into the storytelling rather than just being a gimmick of something, flying out the screen. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I actually think that this was a good film to see in that format, and I wasn't familiar with the original manga.
No, that's right. It's Yukito Kishiro.
Right.
Wrote the graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, this has been, James Cameron has had this on his list of, projects for years.
Yeah.
From before he made Titanic even, this was down as one of his films.
Yeah, there's something I vaguely remember about that from a long distant past.
Yeah, no, well, apparently he had a lot of the development work already done. I think you can feel that even though, he's the writer, producer, and Rodriguez is the director, but you can sort of, I think it feels like it's got Cameron's DNA all over it.
Yeah.
And apparently you get that from the trailer. I've not seen it, but you kind of get that from even the trailers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have to say, again, I've got loads of opinions about marketing and trailers and stuff out there these days, but I from the trailer, I wasn't particularly excited about this film, to be honest, and I was like, and I actually went to see it, and I have to say, it won me over. I got totally invested in the characters, rather than just the spectacle of it. Yeah. Although the world building in this is absolutely incredible. Yeah. That sort of mix of cultures, and sort of it's dystopian, but it's also advanced, and I think one of the smart things they did was making the main plot set sort of halfway through the 25th century, with the backstory being halfway through the 22nd century. Yeah. It was distanced far enough from us that you kind of bought into that world more, I found.
And what I liked about it as well, I kind of felt there was a little bit of Pinocchio, Geppetto, and that story. Then there was like a bit of Terminator, there was a bit of Dusk Till Dawn, there was a bit of Titanic, and it kind of felt like different aspects of their kind of back catalogue of work somehow got infused.
Very true.
And it was a great... But it was for children. It's for younger audiences. But I think there was enough in that to entertain adults. I really enjoyed it. I went there and with no expectation, because I'm not really an action adventure buff or fan necessarily. But I just got swept away with this young girl's story of it is a coming of age story, but she's...
Oh yeah, it's like a total fish out of water. Meets, it had all of that.
And it did have all of that, really. And there were certain other characters around as well, the supporting cast. There was an arc to their stories as well, which I rather liked. I don't know, do you want to play Rosa Salazar?
Oh yeah, right.
And see what she had to say. She's the young lead. I've not seen her in anything else. I don't know whether this must be her first big role.
No, she's done a couple of other films.
Has she?
I've seen her in stuff.
I was just thinking as well, because obviously James Cameron, we kind of know him as being someone that he pushes boundaries with technology. So
yes.
And from what I've seen, not seeing the film, but from what I've seen, the motion capture looks quite exceptional.
Oh, it's stunning. Yeah, absolutely.
Does it feel like it's a next step for motion capture, or does it sort of feel like we're still treading the same?
Well, it's because she has to also, because she's a cyborg, she's got to look slightly mechanical.
Yeah.
So it's different in the sense of how Andy Serkis would use kind of performance capture or motion capture, because they generally are. He's morphing in animals to kind of have a human element, whereas she is still part robot, isn't she? Part human.
Yeah, I mean,
the expressions looked good. The expressions looked very.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I mean it really had some interesting themes. I mean, it wasn't what I was worried about. Is I was worried it would be a film that was all about spectacle and all about action. But there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more about what it means to exist and what it means to be sentient. It had like certain themes that we've seen in other films like Ex Machina.
Yes.
There's a bit of that. There was some bits and pieces that they deal with in the Ghost in the Shell.
I was going to say it was
film.
anything like that. It feels.
It definitely had that. But then, as you said, there's things that are reminiscent of Titanic and some of Rodriguez's films and a few Terminator-y type things. So it is really it's kind of their greatest hits, but also
it is
with there is a story with some heart, and you do connect with the characters, and you've got that emotional arc in the film.
You do.
But the spectacle is amazing as well. It's a good balance.
Oh no, I wonder whether because I know for you Anthony, Robert Rodriguez is a huge influence to you, why you became a filmmaker yourself. So what do you think about when you think, I mean, Dusk Till Dawn's one of my favourite films. And I love that film.
I love that film. Unashamedly love that film.
I know. And then you think of, there was Antonio Banderas, Desperado,
yes.
And all of those.
El
Mariachi.
Yeah.
And so
The Rebel Without a Crew, great.
Yeah. And Puerco Pibil, the great menu that you cook.
He's cooking bits on his DVDs.
Oh, his 10-minute cooking school.
Absolute killer sometimes around, mate. I still got the anchovy paste. It's years old. I don't want to throw it out because it just feels like
it's part of
your
history.
But we bought a house. Yeah, that was it. It was we bought a house, and it was like we had everybody around. It's like, right, okay, guys, make Puerco Pibil, and did very successfully.
You did.
And it's like I can't throw that paste out, even though it actually went out of date. 2006.
Wow.
And I would have made that again. So there we go. So you want a good clear out.
Was it just best before or used by?
I think either. It's like it was bright red. Now it's more of a faded orange.
Always dead.
You
can't find it. I'm trying to find it actually. It sounds weird. I couldn't get it because I was going to make it recently. It's like I better get some fresh. Otherwise, I am going to kill everybody off, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I'll probably have to go and find a special.
So it's inspired you as a cook and a filmmaker.
Exactly.
So
back in the day before.
Do you think it's interesting that that he's making? I mean, it's almost like a big blockbuster.
It is, but because he has done stuff. It's not as if he hasn't. He's already done his indie sort of like films. So the fact that he's, it's good that he's still going and he's still trying to push boundaries and stuff. And that is a difficult thing because a lot of filmmakers are trying to push boundaries, and it doesn't always work. And I don't know whether sometimes there's a weight that comes with the success.
Yeah.
And I love Peter Jackson. He's another big influence of mine. But like when it came to the Hobbits and and the higher frame rate thing, it's like, well, I know you're trying to. It's like you're in a position of power. So where do you take it? And but when you've got people like James Cameron who are sort of like in your corner, who is another one who's always trying to constantly evolve cinema and make it more immersive, and he is one of the only ones that's really made sort of like 3D. He pushed 3D and it worked in Avatar, and there's very few films that have come after Avatar where it's like, a 3D film that worked really well. More there's like sequences and things like that, but they are inventive, and Robert Rodriguez pushed was pushing the whole digital revolution for which we would not be doing stuff that we're doing now. Certainly wouldn't be doing this like I set out to do
they both as filmmakers embrace that, definitely. Cameron and Rodriguez, and I agree with what you were saying about Peter Jackson as well, even though the high frame rate didn't exactly work, or it didn't work for me anyway, but but at the same time he's still pushing boundaries with They Shall Not Grow Old.
Oh my god, that was amazing.
That blew me away.
Oh gosh.
To watch that.
So I mean, you leave something. There's something that stays with you after you've seen that.
No, definitely.
And again, it's like And like anything, when you start pushing those boundaries, where do you stop and where? I mean, like even with The Hobbit, it could have been a massive success. People might have just looked and gone, I love the way this thing looks. But you're also ingrained with the way film is. And that, 24 frames. And okay, when you're doing fast sequences and you don't get that blur, it's kind of nicer because it's a cleaner image, but it just makes everything look like Hollyoaks.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And if Hollyoaks look like that, maybe I'd like Hollyoaks more, but it doesn't.
There you go.
Anyone from Hollyoaks listening, we're sorry.
Or anyone watching?
Where are we? Stop.
We're sorry. No.
It's unfair. I haven't seen it for years, but it's just
I'm sure it's like a much higher standard.
Well, yes, but it's just exactly. You have to push the boundaries because you never know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
And I through when I started to do filmmaking, we were still being taught on film, which was great, and I feel quite blessed to have been playing around with 35mm and stuff back in the day now. But it also makes it cheap because that was expensive back then just to get the film stock, which is more now.
The processing,
bad enough, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but now it's like, look at this. You've got things like YouTube. I remember when I'd done my short. And I was at a convention and we was talking about, I'd done a video and it's like, I think, was he pushing MySpace? He goes, no, you want to put it on YouTube. Yeah, get it on YouTube and you set up a MySpace page. So yes, that's what's going on there. It's like, really? MySpace? And we was talking about this the other day, down in Devon, around the corner, I think he's a builder. And his trade on the side of his van is MySpace. It's like MI-space. And it's been going for like 10, 15 years, and you're thinking, at the time, I remember seeing that, thinking, MI, that is really clever. And it's just like, I wonder how he gets away with it. And now, apart from people that remember MySpace, no one's going to remember MySpace apart from Justin Timberlake.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's another thing. But it's everything's, the industry and everything's evolved, and they are the people that's helped do that, and for better or worse, because it isn't always a good thing, but you have to kind of push things forward because otherwise things do become stagnant.
Yeah.
And whether some of those things are massive successes or fails, you learn just as much from the failures as you do the successes. So and so fair play to like Robert Rodriguez and James Cameron as a legend. They have opened the door for a lot of people that would not have. I would never have even thought about doing filmmaking ever if I wasn't watching. El Moriarty and the documentary, which is all based off of sort of off the book, and showing there's so much that you can do with filmmaking. You don't need millions. You can actually do it with much less. It's just, and that's the beauty of filmmaking. Half the time, it's just you're faced with problems, and you have to figure out a way around them. And it's like even where we're sat there, which people can't see, but like doing all stuff to try and cut down like reverb in the room and things like that, and just like a bit of gaffer tape, tap it up, that'll do. Nearly bash myself in the head, nearly blind myself. Doesn't matter. It's for film.
It's for your craft.
But this is it, and this, and you can just kind of sit by the wayside and use what's there, or you can get yourself in a position. And I love those things that Rodriguez did on his making on the old DVDs of like Pro Tools and this, and it's moving at the power of thought, and you don't need to have like a bespoke sound desk, which you can only use in that studio. Now you can just kind of like, great, put it on a flash drive, we're going to tippy toe off, and then we're going to plug it in here and do it over there. Like we've been doing this week going all over the country.
Steven Soderbergh in recent years, he's making films on an iPhone. He's making films on something
guerrilla filmmaking.
That 80% of the planet nowadays have got one of these in their pocket, because it was like an iPhone 7. It wasn't like the new 10 or whatever. And he's making films on that. So there are people out there pushing it and using what we've got today. But I think the thing with Cameron was the reason he sort of handed this over to Rodriguez, although he was still very involved in it, I think, but was because he's obviously focusing on all these million Avatar sequences that we're going to get. And
the thing is as well, though, going kind of back to the aesthetic of the film, is that somebody like Robert Rodriguez, who is of Latin American descent, understands that world, and because it feels very Latin American, doesn't it?
Well, it felt very multicultural.
Yes, it did.
In general,
inclusive like that. Yes,
and that was part of the conceit, was the fact that we all took to the skies, and then we had the fall, and it was kind of everybody that's left from different
that's
cultures
right.
living in that situation.
Yes,
and
but
you
in a
know,
diverse
but
environment,
they were
isn't it?
really
Yeah.
imaginative about it.
Yeah,
I thought that the you know, the density of it was something of a sort of Tolkien or George Lucas type world building standard, and I thoroughly had a great time. It was a 2-hour film that flies by,
and that's what you want.
And of course they've said it. I won't spoil, but they have kind of laced in a possible
a sequel possibility.
Yes. Who knew? I mean, apparently there's quite a few of these manga novels that
there's probably a whole series of them.
This was I think this was cherry picked from one or two of them.
Oh, okay.
From what I understand, but and the producer sort of said that, you know, somebody asked why, because in the manga it's Battle Angel Alita, whereas obviously here it's Alita Battle Angel. But they said something about, oh, well, with Cameron it's all about TNA, and somebody was like, what? And he goes, his films either begin with T or A. So it's, you know, you got Terminator, Titanic, you know, and then you've got Avatar.
I was thinking
Aliens.
of something else.
Yeah, exactly. So
I was actually thinking of that Jamie Lee Curtis scene in True Lies.
Yeah. True Lies.
Can we cut?
Yeah. So you know, it's really, I was impressed.
Yeah, no, I was impressed. Do we want to see what Tom
Yes,
Rosa Salazar
let's see what someone who knows what they're talking about says. Yes.
Somebody who's actually in it.
A great part to play, physical and lots of character as well for an actress.
Yes, it was very challenging mentally and physically to be at that level of endurance every single day. It was quite a gift to go on that journey.
And I saw sort of gymnastics as kind of like a staple part of what was required from you.
Yeah, well, a lot of martial arts every single day, training for 5 months. It was nice to tone my body, but also to tone my mind, and that was a nice byproduct from the training.
That's it from the world premiere of Alita Battle Angel. Please remember to subscribe to ensure we'll see you next
lovely,
time.
Isn't she? Because of course in the film you don't really see what she looks like, because they've done this, you know, expressive manga style eyes, which really work. I mean, it really worked in the film, but you just realise just how much visual effects are in that, and
But I mean, the thing is that like the fluidity in the action sequences are. I mean, she's really nifty, isn't she, on her toes? But I think what's interesting, what she said there, is that she's not only having to kind of physically put herself through her paces, but mentally as well. And there is, because she's kind of lost, isn't she? When we first sort of see her, when she kind of first switched on, so to speak. So there's this kind of whole, you know, she's got a past, but she almost like she's got amnesia. She doesn't know where she's come from. So
she's got these abilities.
She's got these abilities, and she's having to kind of find out why she's got them and what's her past, and because she just doesn't know. And slowly but surely, certain things happen through the film that kind of trigger the memories, don't they? Really,
they do.
Yeah, it's really.
And they've got some great you know, sequences as well, because there's this game which is essentially you've got sort of motorized rollerblades, and it's a game that sort of mixes that with basketball that they sort of play. But those sequences are really like quite impressive.
Robot Wars.
There you go, like Robot Wars, and you get a lot of that as well.
Nice.
But anyway.
But then I think there's a little bit of everything for everyone, isn't there?
Yeah.
Really? So I think, I think if you've got the opportunity to go out and see the film, I recommend it.
Check it out.
Ready Player One.
Like Ready Player One. I enjoyed that.
I like Ready Player One.
I love that.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
That's a whole other podcast.
That's a whole other podcast, that one,
No,
So Ryan, something a little bit more grounded and back down to earth, Fighting with My Family.
Yes.
You've had the pleasure of going to a screening to that's coming out.
I did, yes, Fighting with My Family. So it's written and directed by Stephen Merchant, who co-directed The Office and Extras. And the film really came about. It's the true story of the Knight family from Norwich. They're basically a wrestling family. I think the parents were wrestlers, and their kids sort of get into wrestling by default almost. But they love it. The kids also really get into it, and as they get older, they're really excited about becoming, you know, pro wrestlers. It's sort of their dream. And so we see them grow up, and we see them wrestling in their community, and the whole community loves seeing them and things like that. And so what we see is their journey, and they've sent tapes off to WWE, and then WWE call them back and say, oh, we're interested in your tape. We're going to be at the O2, you know, seeing wrestlers. Why don't you come down? And so we see that, and we see the brother and sister duo of that family. They go down to audition, but only Saraya Knight, the girl who is Paige in the very real world of WWE, gets in, and the brother doesn't, and it's the friction that causes. And then we watch her through her training until the end, which I won't spoil, but you can see the real thing on YouTube, because it's a real story. But so what's wonderful about this film is that it's because it's Stephen Merchant, who, when you watch things like The Office, what comes across in those things, they know comedy. Stephen Merchant knows comedy, but what he also knows is human interaction, and he gets those little things right. So you get to know characters, you get to know who they are, and you find them funny and you find them endearing. And this film has so much of that, and it's funny, it's heartwarming. The Rock is obviously in it as himself, which is interesting to see him play himself. If I should say that. But he's wonderful in it, and actually one of the real star turn for me is Vince Vaughn is in this film.
Oh my God, really?
And he plays Hutch, who's basically the recruiter. He recruits for WWE, and he's the one who sort of sees something in her initially. And he is actually, if this was any other film, you'd probably be talking about sort of nominations.
Really?
It's probably maybe over-egging it, but he's so good in it. And he just commands every scene that he's in, and he's so funny, and he's wonderful in it. And so what you really get is you kind of know what to get from a sports movie.
Yeah.
You know, it is formulaic, I will say that, but because it's got that real emotion involved, and those characters that you really want to see do well. You root for him.
Like Eddie the Eagle.
I love that film.
Yeah, exactly the right film to compare it to. Because it's very British. It's got that very British, because this family's from Norwich, so there's a lot of accents in there. But luckily, it's Nick Frost playing the father of the family.
Right. Is it Florence Pugh?
Yes,
that's right.
She's playing
from Lady Macbeth.
That's fantastic.
She's wonderful.
She's.
I was watching her in a film on Netflix. It's Malevolent.
Oh yes,
film.
I started to watch that. I it's very kind of rudimentary, isn't it? But, and I didn't get a chance to see it to the end. Is it worth sticking with that one?
No.
Okay. Moving swiftly on.
That's that review.
And
then the mother's played by Lena Headey, who's
Game of Thrones,
about as far from Cersei as you can possibly get.
I love her. She's an amazing actress.
And the brother, who's actually played by Zach Knight, who I think was in Dunkirk, and he was in a film called Caliber.
That's right. Which is amazing.
Which was
amazing. One of my Netflix recommendations.
Actually, I think you recommended it to me, and I watched it quite recently. It was one of the most harrowing experiences I've ever had.
No, it's great.
Caliber's
amazing.
Yeah.
Everybody I've recommended it to. I say don't read anything about it. Just go to Netflix and hit play. Don't read the synopsis. Don't look at who's in it. Just watch that film and experience
it. That is the best way.
But anyway, sorry, I've got
because that's what you said to me, and I watched it. It was wonderful. But so basically, it's Jack Lowden, and he plays Zach Knight, who's the brother. Who's obviously, we see his journey as well. We see her journey as she sort of gets into wrestling, and she's also sort of like metaphorically wrestling with change in her life. And we see Zach, who's also, it was his dream, this really was his dream, probably more so than hers. And so to see him not get in, and then how his life sort of unfolds as well. It's a really good juxtaposition, and it's a film that it makes you laugh, it makes you cry. I did cry. I'm not gonna deny it. but it is just wonderful. It's very funny, and I think that Stephen Merchant really has done a great job with this film.
He's good at that. There was a series he had on HBO called Hello Ladies.
That's it was based on his stand-up show.
And it's fortunately it's one of those things where they had a season and it didn't conclude, but then they did do a movie to conclude it.
Oh right, okay.
So it was one of those where, you know, you get to the end of the season, you kind of want to see more, and then it's been cancelled or whatever. But we'll do a 2-hour special to round off the story, and that was quite fun. I mean, you know, it's I suppose it's a bit un-PC and whatever.
Well, whatever.
In today's climate, because
exactly.
obviously it was a few years ago he made that. But I found that very amusing.
Yeah,
so
I mean, it's quite funny on this because the reason the film came about, just to go into that, is because The Rock was filming Fast and Furious 28, or I don't know what
Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
But he was in. Actually, this is quite a while ago. But he's filming. He was watching Channel 4, and this documentary called The Wrestlers Fighting with My Family comes on. It's the real life documentary about the Knight family.
Oh, right.
And The Rock watches this, and he thinks, "Oh, this is sort of like my family," and it inspired him.
Oh my goodness!
So he got on the phone to Stephen Merchant, who I think they met whilst making The Tooth Fairy.
Oh yeah.
Which I haven't seen.
I tried seeing it, and I think I quite enjoyed it.
Do you know what? I think it's quite enjoyable.
It's actually
fair play to him. He's happy to send himself.
It sounds like
he should be.
It's like every time he thinks someone, they forget, and he goes, "I love this bit," and he does it, and then he does it again. I can't get enough of it. I remember watching it and really enjoying it, and not expecting to. It was just one of those, okay. Like in the background when you're doing work, and then you watch it, like, actually, do you know what? That really wasn't bad. It's one of those ones I think helped win The Rock into being a movie star rather than a wrestler. It was just like one of those bizarre things. You watch it, it's like, no, it's really not bad. So yeah, my memory, I don't quote me on it, but my memory.
We're going to.
My recommendation
is
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so they that's how they met, and he got Steve on the phone and said, "Do you want to make this film?" And the rest is history. But it's a wonderful film, well worth watching.
That's out in the next couple of weeks, isn't it?
That's out on the 27th of February.
27th of February. Right. Well, we'll look out for that in the cinemas. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for going along and saying that. Sorry.
There's a premiere coming up for it.
There is a premiere coming up for it. You're right. Yes.
I thought so.
Get involved.
We might just do that. So, are we going to see a trailer?
Are we going to see a trailer?
Are we going to see
We were going to see a trailer, but Keith doesn't want to see the trailer.
But Keith doesn't want to see the trailer.
Well, no, I don't want to be a party pooper.
He's going to go on.
Is it a spoilery trailer then?
No.
Which one are we watching? We
was going to put Frozen 2.
I thought it was another film. I thought we were doing the Child's Play.
We were going to put Child's Play on.
We can do, yeah.
Yeah, let's do Child's Play.
Let's do Child's Play.
Yeah, Child's
There
Play.
you go.
Trailer reaction.
Let's see if there's any better trailer.
How about Child's Play?
Is it called Child's Play?
Child's Play.
Child's Play.
So it's just a straight remake.
There's a story here, you see, because there's going to be...
Production begins on Jumanji 3.
Ooh.
You heard it
There we go.
there
Speaking of The
first,
Rock, Captain Marvel heading for 100 million opening.
There you go. No, the whole thing with Child's Play is there's two strands to it now. There's two... Because basically you've got... Is it Don Mancini? I think was the original guy who did the original.
Because he's always at Fright Fest.
Yeah, well, the last few years has been the sort of continuation of that original franchise. So you've had I think you had 3 Child's Play films. Then there were a kind of couple of parody ones, Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky, and then you had The Curse of Chucky, I think it was, which was at Fright Fest about 5 years ago, and then there was another one which I can't even remember what
which one was the one in the mental asylum?
The mental asylum.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's
Cult
called.
Cult of Chucky.
That's it. Yeah.
So
is it Fiona Dorff?
His daughter. Stephen Dorff.
Daughter.
So Brad Dourif, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not Stephen Dorff. It's Brad Dourif. Yes, yeah.
Oh God.
It's God, my God.
I should sometimes.
And Fiona, his daughter was. But so Mancini is still. He owns the rights to
the doll,
Chucky and the doll, whatever.
Right, really?
But not to. I think it's Universal or whatever. Yeah, whatever studio owns the the franchise. So what's going to happen now, to my understanding, is Mancini is going to continue to make his films, which are about a cursed doll.
Yeah.
But this new version, which I've not seen anything of, this remake, is kind of redoing it to turn it into a sort of animatronic doll or a robot doll or something. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think, judging by the trailer, I don't know how much is known, but judging by the trailer, it says that. And I remember reading something, I think it was like in Gorzone or Fangora, way back in the day when the first one came out, and there was tension between Tom Holland and Don Mancini, I believe, because there was never supposed to be the sort of like that opening scene with Brad Dourif. Like I said, you never said Dourif. It was never supposed to have that. It was never supposed to be about a demonic possessed
just
doll.
A doll.
It was supposed to be a doll that kind of came to life and went on the rampage.
I didn't know that.
And it was, and it was Tom Holland, I believe, that was like, no, it needs to be.
Kind of bought the
kind of human
mythology to it.
That kind of
tried to make it make sense in it.
And I think, which I love all that stuff because Tom Holland's a legend anyway. So, but it was like that was, I believe, if I remember the article, that was originally what Chucky was supposed to be about, and it was Tom Holland that insisted on that being in there.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm curious whether this is going to be more like what was originally the idea for Chucky,
right?
Or if it's just like a chance.
Well, I mean, it is a series of films that's had very much a tonal change sort of midway because obviously the first film was made at the end of the 80s, so it was a very 80s feeling film, right? But then exactly, they got quite dark, and certainly by the time of the third one, it was really quite dark. But then again, we're in the 90s. For very sad reasons, but then, weirdly, this almost feeds in, and I didn't intend this, to what I was talking about with the whole J-horror thing in the 90s, because in the 90s was when Chucky then started becoming more of a parody, because I think it was the late 90s when you had the Bride of Encino.
Because I know the whole DVD thing was like in place by that point, so I was buying them, so it was just like, and that's how I was able to see. And I got it imported because the UK DVDs were hopeless. But you get the DVDs imported and they had like tons of extras. Although I think
there is a really good set.
Bride of Chucky was one of the few that actually had more than the US, because they had like a little special Tiffany Comes to London or something like that. Anyway, but
I've got the collection. But weirdly, this is quite bad. I had never seen any of them until Fright Fest 5 or 6 years ago, when they did the Curse of Chucky, and I thought, I knew it was going to be the opening film, and I knew it was going, and I was like, well, to enjoy that, what they did is the Prince Charles Cinema played 1, 2, and 3 back to back as a midnight showing, so I actually went and experienced those 3, and then then I got the DVD or the Blu-ray to watch Seed and Bride, or Bride and Seed, the other way, right? And then I watched Curse, and then obviously Cult was a few years. So I only actually got into the whole Chucky verse, if you like, in the last sort of within the last sort of 5 or 6 years. I hadn't seen the film from the 80s or any of it. I'd missed all of that stuff.
I was went into it when it started. I remember seeing it advertised at the cinema. But I'm trying to think, how old was I at that point? And horrors used to freak me out, so I probably didn't see it.
The whole point.
Which but they were
funny that.
Couldn't. So
but you were still playing with dolls, weren't you?
Rachel Care Bears.
That was Care Bears, wasn't it?
Future podcast.
Yeah.
Just
He-Man.
He-Man is not underrated. He-Man is given its proper deserves. So I remember, because like me and Richard watching stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we started getting into horrors, and then it was like the Friday the 13th, Freddy, and all that kind of stuff, and like
well, the 80s was an amazing time for it was an amazing time for like action movies, but it was an amazing time for horror. That whole what I call the home video era was incredible.
This is the thing, which is an interesting kind of like take on like horror.
Us old kids, that's what we grew up on.
So you always think of horror, it's like with any film, you want to go and see it at the cinema, but horror. Certainly for our generation, that's not the way that we saw horror.
It was video. It was.
And then later DVD. Yeah. It was interesting what you were saying. What we were all saying about how Scream sort of revolutionised horror in the 90s.
Yes.
You're right when you say that Child's Play sort of became a parody in the 90s, because so did Freddy as well.
Oh, big time.
So all of those kind of
by
80s,
the fourth film, Freddy
all
was
of those
just
80s
a joke.
Kind of iconic horror just started to become parodies of themselves.
Yeah.
And Scream kind of brought. I feel like it
brought a bit more that shift to it.
I think Scream was amazing.
Scream was amazing.
You know, you've got Halloween to thank, the original Halloween to thank for creating that sort of, even though people argue it's not the first slasher by any means, but that was the thing that sort of gave birth to all those like really gory, even though Halloween wasn't gory, but all those kind of more serious 80s ones. And then obviously Scream was the one that kind of turned that around and made it sort of parody itself. And that's why I never quite understood things like Scary Movie, because I was like, well, Scary Movie, what I don't get is you know, that's obviously a spoof, but I thought but that's kind of a spoof of a parody anyway. It was like, well,
but we were venturing into kind of like the comedy horror, or really expanding on that comedy horror more, and that's what Scream did. It just like, it turned out like, this is all. We're going to completely acknowledge all of this stuff about horror films that you've had in the past 10 years, all the tropes, and then turn it on itself. But then you also in the 90s, you had Hollywood making big budget horrors like Dracula and Interview with a Vampire, and all those things. They were actually investing in horror.
And they were being made by, you know, artistic type filmmakers like Coppola, and so
Neil
on,
Jordan.
and Neil Jordan,
and
that sort of thing, and of course attracting that sort of stellar cast, like Tom Cruise and
Brad Pitt,
and all that sort of stuff. But
Keanu Reeves.
Well, you know, I mean. But
that's another separate.
That's another podcast.
Keanu Reeves in Dracula. We'll get onto that.
He's done John Wick since he's made.
He's back.
He's forgiven.
He's back.
Interesting point with Freddy though. Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare. They've got my 3D glasses up there.
I've got those. From the cinema. Yes.
I
went to see that, and they gave
videos as well.
They did. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and it's old school, red and green. It's not even the polarized.
Because there's in After Effects, there's a filter you can put on your videos, and you've got to play around with it. But
what to use it?
But I mean,
I've done it on projects that I've been currently working on, and bit of tweaking. But it works very well.
But that really,
that very
is. That
really okay, so
let's
Child's Play.
The nail in the coffin.
Oh yeah, sorry, we went.
We digressed already. Yeah.
Right, let me pull it up.
I've not seen this new trailer. I don't know if I want.
It's all right. I just didn't. It's something and nothing.
It's very much a teaser.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, I don't mind teasers.
You don't see.
It's the second trailers that always piss me off with everything.
I never.
The second trailers.
I don't do second
Halloween was ruined. The new Halloween.
I don't know. I've seen the trailers, but I don't know I've seen. I can't remember.
Here we go, gents.
Okay, the new Child's Play, or the old Child's Play. We'll find out.
At Caslin, we believe that happiness is about more than entertainment. It's about being known,
Is that an advert?
understood, loved. Introducing your new best friend.
People, let me tell you about my best friend. People, let me tell you about my best friend.
National Lampoon's meets Chucky. Oh,
see, my first thoughts on that is that it just looks like a sequel.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't look like a reboot, which I'm assuming is what the whole point is.
It doesn't look like anything too... Yeah.
It doesn't look distant enough from what we've already seen. It's kind of like that the Friday the 13th remake we had not so long ago. It just felt like a sequel. It didn't really feel like there was anything
It
fresh.
doesn't feel like a reimagining.
No.
Does it?
No.
It feels like...
It feels like there's a lot of money
literally
thrown
just
into it.
kind of...
Yeah.
I mean, you don't... Okay, fair play there. In that teaser trailer, you don't actually see the doll. You don't see what Chucky actually looks like
or sounds like.
Because I mean, it's
iconic. One of the iconic things about it is just the way he sounds.
Yeah.
Legend older. I don't think it's him doing it, is it?
I
Do you remember reading somebody else? I think they announced who was voicing the doll, but.
But
has it built suspense? It built suspense, didn't it?
It wasn't a bad teaser, but I totally agree with what you're saying, Brian. It just looks like another Chucky film. It doesn't sort of reek of, well, we're taking Chucky in a whole new direction. It's just, well, it's what it is, I suppose, a remake.
Yeah. What scares it looks very slick and stylish, and sometimes they throw so much money at it, it kind of loses its charm.
That is always a danger, but I don't know. I'm quite happy to give it a go. Because I love the Child's Play films. So but it's I was so but the more that's the second time I watched it and enjoyed it more that time than I did the other time.
Than you did the other times.
Quite a nice texture to it.
Well, I like the fact it's got the kid whose name I forget, who was in Sandberg's Lights Out, and I want to say Aubrey Plaza. Is that the actress's name?
Oh, is that her name? From
Parks and Rec.
And a wonderful film called Ingrid Goes West. There's another film that I would massively recommend.
I think she's brilliant.
She's really good.
Because that's a whole play on the world we live in now in social media. And it's kind of a parody. It's kind of like single white female with social media, but it's kind of, it kind of winks at itself a bit as well. Okay. And that's a really fun film. But I think that's the same actress.
What was that called again?
Ingrid Goes West.
And where's is that on?
That's available. I know you can get it on home media for sure. Okay. In the
on DVD.
And I don't know if it's on
any of those platforms or anything.
I'm not too sure. Because you're watching Legion.
Yeah, and she's in Legion.
Yeah, because I've seen the first season, I've seen the second season, and now they're wrapping it up with the third season. So.
Yeah, I enjoyed the first season, and I couldn't get. I don't know. The second season kind of went almost too far. I mean, I like the fact that it was like a kind of, superhero meets art film kind of thing they were trying to do.
Yeah.
But I just thought they pushed it a little bit too much in the beginning of the second season, which didn't capture me. I didn't
watch the first episode. I didn't really get past
you really
that.
didn't get into it.
It wasn't so much that there wasn't anything that I disliked.
Right.
I think it just didn't. I think it's one of those things where I didn't really engage with any of the characters. I didn't really feel anything from them.
Yeah.
And but I'll probably return to it at some point.
Yeah, I might give it. It's going to pop up somewhere, and I'll watch the rest of it.
Yeah.
Because that's sometimes and not to put those shows down, a lot of work goes into them, but it's like, I've got something to do, I'll put it on in the background, and then I can kind of take it in, and then, but I'm not going to really lose any time. I would like to watch that, because I remember I enjoed the first season, because it was out.
Oh, it's amazingly stylised.
Yeah.
I mean, really amazingly stylised storytelling, and really, really unusual, look in narrative and all of that. But I don't know, it lost me a bit on season 2, just the beginning. Yeah. I always find it's bad is if I watch a couple of episodes and then don't really go back to it. That's never a good sign. I want to be wanting to see
because it's odd. I mean, there's a fair few shows where I am done with this, and then Game of Thrones is one of those, because it was certainly when it got to that third season, there was my biggest problem with that, certainly that season, was just like there was multiple storylines. You were spending about 5 minutes maybe with each one, and you're just like,
it was,
what are we doing with this? It's just like every time I'm just about to get into it, it took them. They were going to the wall. Like in this last season, you know, they're out in the middle of nowhere, get to the wall in about 5 minutes. This one took around about 6 episodes. It's like, this is doing my head in, and I couldn't stand it. And I thought, I'm done with this. And then I did stick with it because there have been some amazing episodes in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
In these like final seasons, and I'm really looking forward to like seeing the final 6.
It took me a while to get into it because of the drama school acting, if I'm honest, but I'm not sure if you're allowed to say that. It was like, how dare you say something negative about Game of Thrones? I enjoy it while I'm watching it.
Yeah,
but I don't. It doesn't make me I sort of watch it because everyone starts talking about it.
So you get kind of swept away with it.
But I've never got really.
I've never
got
that
massively
bothered
involved
by it.
in it.
No. I watched the first 3 seasons and I got fed up.
Did you see all the 3rd season?
I'm the same. I'm the same.
I think I did. Yes.
I feel like, in fact, this is weird to hear you all say this because I sometimes feel like I'm the only person on the planet that's not really into Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
you know, when everybody else raves about it, and you know, I don't get me wrong. I know it's incredibly well made.
Oh yes, absolutely.
It's incredible
but it just doesn't. It just
doesn't float the boat, basically.
There's some that it's like a. Who was I talking about? I think Neil. I know Neil Marshall has done a few. Oh yeah, because I was talking to someone about Hellboy and stuff. And there's a few, certainly some of his episodes, and I think he did Battle of the Bastards.
David Nutter's done quite a lot of them, and he's won Emmys and stuff for his episodes. Like he did the whole Blood Wedding or Red Wedding.
The Red Wedding.
That was.
So one that Metro newspaper famously spoilt.
Oh.
Did you read that?
Good old Metro.
Because I hadn't watched it, and it didn't bother me that much, but I can imagine it would other people. And it was like basically it was on page 3 of Metro, so you just turned over the front page, and there was like a photo of one of the key, moments of it, and like so many people complained to Metro. And I think it was on the news in the end, and Metro had to apologise.
It does ring a vague bell.
That does,
they just put a picture of one of the key deaths. Spoiler alert! One of the key deaths on the 3rd page, just massive photo.
Nice. That's quite funny.
Very
it is quite funny because it's like some of these. I mean, at the end of the day, all of this is just meant for fun and entertainment. People do take some of it way too seriously. So every now and again, as much as I know when I'd really like something, and the worst thing you want to do is you're into something, and then you go on Facebook, and then say if you're into like Walking Dead, which I certainly take more leave than anything else, to be honest now. But you don't want someone like. That's just it's just. And I sat and watched the last few episodes, which had Rick Grimes' character kind of like
say no more.
Exit. No, whatever. Yeah. Well, whatever. Whatever. So
but it was just 2 seasons behind.
I was an avid watcher, and I'm now 2 seasons.
I got up to the famous Negan, scene, and which left me traumatized.
It was horrible.
I was like,
horrible.
Oh my god! Again, I don't want to say spoilers here, but I was like, oh my god! And then a few episodes after that, it kind of lost me because it got really boring.
That was almost the beginning of the end.
Maybe the writers were recovering as well.
No, I mean it had a profound effect on me.
No, it did me as well.
I like the show. I mean, this Halloween or last Halloween as it is now, just gone. I dressed up as Rick Grimes and the sheriff. That was my Halloween costume. So I really like Walking Dead, but I am drastically behind.
Yeah, me too. And I think I'm about to become 3 seasons.
Yeah, I think I'm
it's just come back, hasn't it? For its
I was in a mid-season break, so I'm probably still 2 seasons.
And I only saw the first season of Fear the Walking Dead, which I managed to watch on a flight across to LA because there was just enough time to watch all 8 episodes in the journey. It was absolutely perfect. I loved it. I just hit play all, stuck my headphones in, took the tray of food as they brought it round, and I was just into it, and I really enjoyed it. But I haven't. Again, there were several seasons in.
Four in. I've seen 3. I haven't seen 4 yet because that's not on Prime for free.
Yeah.
I saw this. I really liked the second season actually more than the other. The third season I wasn't so.
And are they joining up now? Is that
there are characters mingling? Yeah,
right,
there was.
Okay.
But do they explain anything? Because
it
was supposed to be the first season was not only in a different area of the States, of course the States, but but it was actually earlier in the timeline than when Rick Grimes wakes up in the hospital, right?
Yeah.
So as a result, I was wondering whether it would explain more about. I mean, again, I'm not sure the graphic novels on which it's based actually explains anything about what caused the outbreak, and I think actually they changed the way that happened in the TV show anyway, didn't they?
There was something. I know they go in at the end of the last episode of the first season.
Yeah, they had that thing with Jenna, don't they, and whatever. But I don't know. Anyway, we keep going.
I know. We digress.
Because with Walking Dead, it was before that. It was before Negan and stuff. Right. So we'd have the governor, and then we were going into the Negan thing. It's like, are we going to go through all this again? Because we just had this with the governor. It sounds like it's going to be exactly the same, except you're just going to draw it out longer, and they did. And I couldn't be bothered because I just think it's going to be more. But
the whole cliffhanger ending of that thing with Negan, which again I don't want to spoil, but that made me realise how invested I was in those characters.
Same.
Because I was
shocked,
left hanging, and I was. Quite literally, I mean, I love it when TV or movies or whatever can do this to me. I was traumatized. I couldn't sleep.
Really?
I was like, oh my god, because I was like, who is going to be? Who did we just hear that happen to? Because I don't want it to happen to any of them.
Did you guess right though?
I didn't really guess. I just kind of waited to see, and then I saw and. I was pretty traumatised by that as well.
Did you
and I didn't watch it I watched 2 episodes after that, and then there was a whole thing with Carol in a mansion with a guy who had a lion or something, or a tiger or something.
See,
and it lost me at that point. I was like,
so 7, I think. So I think 8 and 9 maybe I haven't watched.
Oh right, so I've not seen 3 seasons then.
I didn't really preoccupy myself with. I wonder who got the end of what's the bat's name?
Oh yeah, Lucille. That's the name of his bat, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't get really too sort of preoccupied with who it would be.
It was just how brutal it was.
I mean, when you saw who it was, it wasn't so much because it was like a double whammy, wasn't it? Not only did you see. Oh no, not that person. No, but also not that person one. In that way.
And then somebody else made a big thing about that it was just like it was too graphic. It's like have you been watching the same show as me? It's like how can you say it's too graphic? And it has to be because it was. I know who it was and stuff, and it's like it's a big character. So what do you think is going to happen? So if you don't. Because the amount, which is one thing that used to bother me about True Blood, especially because that was a great show.
That was a great show in the beginning.
I did first season and lost
couple of seasons.
Yeah, first couple like King of New Orleans.
And then it got a little bit silly, didn't it?
It was just dumb. But then you would have main characters get killed off, but they'd be like, bang, off we pop. And then they're like, oh yeah, I've just got to try and get over it. And about 10 minutes later, they're fine because they're off with somebody else. It's like he was a massive character, and you just bumped him off. It's like nothing. So for me, that's the one thing I think they got right with that is that you have to make an impact because I remember when is it Dale? No, the older actor who was in the X-Files film and he's been in a lot of the Coen Brothers films. Dale. Yeah, it was Dale. He had the camper van.
Oh,
is this in
the season 2? I think he
True Blood.
No, with Walking Dead.
Walking.
Oh, okay.
Keep up, Ryan. Keep up.
Oh, yeah, the older guy.
Yeah. When he died, friends,
like
because he didn't die that way in the comics.
No, it's totally different.
Yeah, and everyone was just like, and our friends were really just like, how dare you do that to that character?
Yeah.
He deserves so much more respect from that. How dare it's like, blimey, O'Reilly, take it easy.
Well, they've got the comics. You know, they did a bit like Dexter did with the books. Walking Dead did with the comics.
Yeah.
So like the first season's very much based on a book or a graphic novel, but then the two things kind of have their own lives. But the problem with Walking Dead, I think, is certainly in its first couple of seasons, is it dealt with change as showrunner. Because it was originally Frank Darabont, who really sort of did bring the aesthetic of the comic to the show, and then of course, or the graphic novel, should I say, and because people don't like the term comic for that, and
you have a chat with Will about that.
So he sort of bought that, but then of course he left the project, and they had new showrunners that went in a slightly different direction, and
that's right.
That can sometimes sort of derail something for a little while. But it's like,
we've really derailed.
Like just like me with this podcast.
It's completely derailed.
Wasn't season 2 of Walking Dead during the writers' strike?
Oh,
well,
I think there was something to do with it, and it massively affected it.
And then, I liked the season 2. I actually enjoyed season 2 more than
I just sound like the writer's strike.
I love the writers' strike.
The character development in season 2 was really good.
That's what I enjoyed about it. I found myself investing with everyone much more, because some of them are really getting on my nerves, and that just helped kind of find that balance. Because I quite like that. That's it's the thing about getting older, I suppose, when you start watching these things, that the things you liked as a kid, which were like much more like bang, 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 bang. Now it's sort of like, the people that, when you're younger, you might not have liked Blade Runner, but when you get older, you kind of do like Blade Runner. It's that kind of, it's just having time with those kind of like those films that you wouldn't like. And I quite liked it, whereas I remember a lot of friends not liking season 2 at all. And I was like, actually, that was the season that won me over, because I was very iffy at the end of season 1.
Yeah.
Which is only a few episodes.
Yeah, it wasn't as long,
was it?
No.
You've got no. I mean, it's that difference between arc television, like the story arc and the character, versus the episodic stuff, which is, like you said, what we grew up on. It's it was the reset button at the end of every episode, basically. So you could syndicate them in any order you wanted.
Exactly, which is similar to what the Orville's like.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, we've gone off script.
We really have gone off script, and we've been talking for quite. It was. Well, it was fun, wasn't it? I think this first
I
podcast.
might come back.
Oh, please do. Keith, you coming back? Anthony, coming back?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I'll come back.
Well, please do come back. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hearing.
Oh, sorry.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks very much.
What about where people can find more?
You're just here because you want to bloody plug yourself.
Also, we should probably go quiet and let Claire.
No, it's all right. I'm used to it.
No, that's it. No, let's give ourselves our little plugs.
Give ourselves a plug. Ryan, do you want to plug your?
I've got nothing to plug.
SoundCloud music, because it's really good. It's not. It's really great. So go to it's Ryan Holloway, isn't it?
On SoundCloud. You know what? I don't know. SoundCloud, Ryan Holloway.
There you go.
I'll put the theme tune on there as well.
Yeah. The theme tune is brilliant. Keith. Plug away.
I feel bad now.
No, you should.
Okay,
well, go on. Give me 10 minutes. This is your
plug away. Tell us you want to plug Movie Heaven, Movie Hell.
Yeah, I'm involved in another podcast, a non-visual podcast. Called Movie Heaven, Movie Hell, which is myself and Simon Aitken, which you can find on YouTube and all podcast providers. Also, I am in a web series which is doing quite well at the moment, which is on Amazon, called Rebecca Gold, which is directed by Ian David Diaz, and you can find that online. And if you want to see any short films that I've made, that I've written, produced and directed, with no money, I'll caveat, if you go to YouTube and put in British Isles, which is EYLES, as in my last name, you can see some of that there. So if you want to find any more, if you're remotely interested, there you go.
Okay, there you go. Thank you, Keith, for that. Anthony, what would you like to plug?
Oh, come on. What about Premiere Scene?
Well, that's Claire's job. I have nothing to plug, because I just blend in the background. So apart from I've got Twitter and things like that, exactly. Yes.
What was that?
Like the Predator. Because I was born in the 70s, and that's where most of the good predators were.
Jesus. That's controversial.
We've now got to talk about certification for the podcast.
No, I have absolutely nothing to plug at this point in time. Just here, lending a voice.
You are, and you can find us at premierscene.net, on Twitter at PremScene, Instagram at PremScene, and we're on Facebook at Premier Scene as well, on a group and page. We report from the red carpet predominantly. We started this podcast that I'm rather enthusiastic about, and we're just passionate about film, and we want to kind of share the passion of making film by the people that make them. That's what we do. See you next time. Thank you.
Cheerio.
Bye.